In this video, we're giving you our top tips for anyone who is learning wood carving. So let's get straight into it. Our first tip is to start at a suitable level. Now, we have different people coming in the workshop over the years, and they've had an introduction to wood carving, and it never ceases to amaze me how many times they start at quite an advanced level, maybe trying to do sort of sculpture carving, this sort of thing, because that's what interests them the most. But if you start at a more simple, basic level, you give yourself a much better chance of succeeding. I've mentioned in different videos over the years how I started carving simple little flowers on key rings. It's a far more suitable level for you to start at than to try and do different sculptures and things like that, because the skills involved are a lot more demanding and take a lot longer to learn. So tip number 1 is to start at a suitable level for yourself. Tip number 2 is to select and use suitable timber. Now, the one that most people mention is basswood, or what we refer to here in the UK as flowering lime. But there are alternatives. It's a great one to start off with, but if you don't find that it suits yourself, try other timbers. We use a wide range of woods. Dad, for instance, he learned to carve using teak. And despite his reputation for being tough, it's a beautiful oily wood that actually is quite sympathetic when it comes to carving. Myself, I learned to carve using beech, a much harder wood, but being slightly more heavy-handed, it suited my carving style. So tip number 2 is to select and use suitable timber for you. Tip number 3 is one that we can't neglect, and that is safety. We advise securing whatever you're working on in a vise or using a clamp, working away from yourself so you get both hands on the wood carving gouge or chisel itself and cut away from yourself, minimizing the risk of any injury. So our tip number 3 is to make sure that you keep whatever you're doing safe at all times. Tip number 4 is practice. Rome wasn't built in a day, and with wood carving, it takes time. We all have different levels of natural ability. It doesn't just happen overnight. The more you practice, the more time you put into things, the more you will improve. So tip number 4 is to practice at every opportunity your wood carving skills. The more you do it, the more you learn, the more you'll progress, and the better the results you'll have. Tip number 5 is to do with tools. Now, tools are an important part of learning wood carving. Having said that, more kit and buying more kit and buying expensive kit doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get better results. To start out, you don't need too many tools. No more than 5 or 6 good quality wood carving chisels and gouges will be sufficient. Accumulating more and more and more can be very tempting early on, but the best investment that you can make when you're learning wood carving is the investment of time. So when it comes to tools, learn about wood carving tools, get a few good quality tools, but don't think that more equipment will result in better wood carving. Keep it simple, keep it affordable, and spend your time wood carving. That's what will get you the best results. Tip number 6 is to learn about the woods. That's the material that you're working in, and the more you can take an interest in woods, the more it will help your wood carving. So when you go to mark a project out, check out the direction of the grain. Predominantly here we are making spoons, and it's preferable to mark your spoons out with a vertical grain. Doing it that way means that we're working predominantly with the grain, and that makes a big difference when it comes to the wood carving. It makes it a lot easier to do. So tip number 6 is to study the woods, to mark it out in the correct direction so you are predominantly working with the grain. Tip number 7 is to do with advice. Now this can go one of two ways, because as we all know, some advice is good and other advice is not so good. So what we advise is to seek out advice, watch videos, learn different things, but make your own decisions, because some advice can be positive and some can be negative. So seek out advice, learn from others who've got more experience and more knowledge, but always take care with the advice that is given. You have to think about the motives of the person giving the advice sometimes, and you have to use that advice to fit in with what you do. So tip number 7 is to take care when taking advice from others. Tip number 8 is a follow-on from our previous tip. And this is to do with developing your own style. And that's why we say about a note of caution when taking advice. Often when giving advice, what we are doing is calling upon our own experiences. But we are all different. So the advice that one gives to another is based on their own experience. So look to develop your own style. Just because somebody else does something in one way doesn't mean that it's going to suit you. So that's our tip number 8, is to develop a style that works the most effectively for yourself. Tip number 9 is to relax. This is something that's really important when it comes to wood carving. If you're very tense, that can come out in your carving, and it can make the process more difficult. So don't get too nervous about it, don't get too wound up, relax. It's a lovely process, and it'll help your carving if you're not too tense when you are doing it. So tip number 9 is to relax. Tip number 10 is probably the most important one that I can give you, and that is to make mistakes. May seem like a strange tip, and we're not telling you to deliberately make mistakes. What we're saying is to not worry about making mistakes. That is how you will learn wood carving. That is how you will improve your wood carving. Doesn't matter how long you've been carving, doesn't matter how skilled you are at wood carving, none of it makes any difference. You are going to make mistakes. The key thing though is to learn from the mistakes you make and develop as a result of it. Did you hit it too hard? Did you work in the wrong direction? Think about the reasons that you made the mistake and learn from it and develop your skills accordingly. As your skills develop, you will make fewer mistakes because you built your experience and you can call upon the memories and knowledge of those previous mistakes you have made. So tip number 10 is essential. When you make those mistakes, think about them, learn about them. It will help you to become a better wood carver. And a bonus tip, we always put an extra one in, and it's usually in a similar vein. Enjoy it. It's great fun. We wouldn't do it if we didn't enjoy it. It's a lovely process, it's a lovely material, and it's fantastic to be able to work with your own hands and to make something. Enjoy the process. Don't worry about making mistakes. Relax and enjoy it. So there you have it. Those are our top tips for any beginner wood carvers. If you've enjoyed that video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, give us a like. If you've got any questions, which hopefully you've got plenty, put them in the comments section below. We love to be able to help you out and help you on this journey of becoming a wood carver. Thanks again for watching, and as always, we'll be back again soon with more videos.